Well, good morning and God bless you. Holy greetings to you, brothers and sisters. This is Scott Bradley coming to you again. Well, this day, a day that the Lord has made, and we are rejoicing and glad in it. We're grateful for you that have taken another opportunity to tune us in on this Thursday morning. Every Thursday at 11 a.m., we are here faithfully to share with you what the Lord has put upon our hearts to share. I want to start out by saying that I want to encourage you to hit the share button. Every one of you that are viewing us today, please hit the share button. Let people know that we're on. Share it with your friends and your family. And I believe that we're going to be sharing some things even today that are going to bless your heart and are going to inform you, particularly we that have given our lives to the Lord. And promotion. I want to deal with that promotion today. Let me start off by saying that these are praying times. I want to encourage you to continue to pray and to seek the face of the Lord. You know, if I may throw this in real quick before I go into the depths of the lesson, I think that we need to become serious about this time because, and I've said this in past presentations, that Christianity has been taking a whole lot of hits lately, because of the hypocrisy that is now running rapid in the world today. I was looking at something on television, on YouTube the other day, cursing preachers, drinking preachers, and they're just blatant, just coming right out and telling you that they curse. There's one particular fellow now who's in the midst of a controversy because of the death of this young man, was named Nipsey Hussle. I keep thinking of Nipsey Russell. Nipsey Russell was the comedian few years ago, and I don't know if that's a derivation of his name or what, but this particular preacher got up on YouTube, and it's all over now, where he just cursed and professed to being a profane user and an alcoholic. Well, not an alcoholic, but drinking alcohol. This, whether you realize it or not, it becomes discredit to who you are and what you stand for. I think that as a minister of the gospel, and again, this is not the subject, but I want to deal with it for a few seconds here. As a minister of the gospel, you represent Christ. And I believe that as a minister of the gospel, you should live above reproach. Now, this is not to say that you're perfect. I know that I'm not perfect. I know that I've got faults, flaws, and failures like anybody else. But I'm not going to get out there and flaunt those failures to prove to you that I'm just like you. As a minister of the gospel, as a man of God, as a woman of God, you should put up have an image that is above reproach. Because would you believe me if I told you that you as preachers of the gospel, you as ministers of the gospel, we as ministers of the gospel, we're the closest thing that many people will see to Jesus. And we have got to point them to Jesus and not flaunt our faults and say, flaunt our faults and say, well, I have this, that, and the other. You know, I think that we've abused the term transparent personally. And I will tell you that I'm not a transparent person because there's some things that are just plain none of your business. Now, that's the way I look at it. And you know, you deal with it. We want a pastor who's transparent. We want a leader who's transparent. I don't know where in the world y'all got that from. Some things you don't need to know. Amen. All right. I'm not going to dwell on that. That's just what I would talk about because, again, these are some things that have been disturbing me of late concerning people who have a mind to just go ballistic, just curse, and my God, and one fella I was looking on YouTube the other day, just blatantly cursing. I'm not talking about border words. You know, some arguments can be made. Well, that's not really a profane word, brother preacher. That's not really a curse word. This man was using cuss words. You mean cussing, not cursing, cussing outright. I mean, I ain't even gonna repeat it, but you know, it's a bad representation of Christ. All right, listen. Let me first of all start out by saying I want you to get our book, The Challenges of the 21st Century Church. We're going to give you more information as the time closes concerning how to get that because you need that book. I want to go directly to the word of the Lord this morning. I want to talk about different levels of responsibility. Now, again, we're talking about promotion. The Bible says promotion comes not from the east, the west, or the south, but God setteth up one and taketh down another. Here's an interesting note about that. The reason why I did not mention the north is because the kingdom of heaven is in the north. God's kingdom is in the northern heavens. And so it said that promotion doesn't come from the east or the west or the south, in other words, but it does come from the north, from the kingdom of God. And that's just a little side note I'm throwing in there. But God is the one who promotes. And the Lord oftentimes promotes because he can trust us or he can't. Years ago, I was sitting in a service of a preacher, and he was talking about gifts and anointings, how God trusts with various ministries. And he made a statement. He said, the Lord simply wants to know, can he trust you? Can he trust you? I think about that periodically. Can the Lord trust us? And if, in fact, he can't trust us, he doesn't put us in certain positions. What's interesting about that is sometimes people will put you in position that you're really not ready for, or put you in places that you really don't need to be. My late pastor used to oftentimes say, the worst thing you can do is let a hungry dog guard the meat house. Think about that. Let's go to the word of the Lord this morning. The book of St. Matthew, Jesus makes this parable. The 25th chapter, starting in verse 14. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto him his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1. And notice the latter portion of the 15th verse. It says, to every man according to his several abilities, and straightway took his journey. Now notice, he did not give every man the same thing. He did not give every man the same amount. But notice what the Bible said, to every man according to his several abilities. Here's the thing I want to throw in here. Sometimes, and again, I've noticed this even in the church sometimes, we have a tendency to put people, and I've said this before, put people in positions that they really don't belong in because they don't have the ability or the talent to do certain things. In fact, we have a tendency to put people on a guilt trip because they don't have your gift. Everybody does not have a jail ministry. Everybody does not have a hospital ministry. Everybody does not have a street ministry. And you cannot put folk on a guilt trip because they don't do what you do. Here's another thing that I think we should take note of, and I've said this in times past. When you as an individual find your place in ministry, it becomes your strength. It becomes your inspiration and joy. And you know why a lot of times people they do things begrudgingly, or they really don't put their heart into it, is because it's not their ministry. And so as a result, they have no motivation. They have no inspiration. They do it out of obligation and out of duty because somebody told them to. And in many cases, they're more faithful to that person than they are to the ministry themselves. But I think that every one of us that follows God, that loves God, ought to seek the Lord. Lord, what would you have me to do? What is in me? And your ministry is in you. Your gift is in you. It's already there. You simply have to find it. I'll give an example of this. And I've used this example before. I am a minister of the gospel. I am a preacher of the gospel. And my preaching is my strength. My preaching is my inspiration. There are plenty of times when I've been going through trials and tests and hard times and struggles and can become upset with a lot of things. But just let me preach. Put me up somewhere. And again, doesn't always have to be in the church, doesn't always have to be up in the pulpit, but let me go. If I got to go down to the jail and preach to the inmates, or go to the shelter and preach to the people there, or even on the corner, or even be a Facebook Live. If I can just find a place to preach this gospel, it becomes my strength. It becomes my inspiration. It becomes my ability, my power and my ability to go through my tests, because some things will not change right away. But God will prepare you and bless you in the midst of what you're going through. He gave to every man according to his ability. In other words, this Lord knew what the strength and the weakness of their servant was, just like God knows our strength and our weaknesses. And as I said before, sometimes in the church, we have a tendency to put people where they really don't belong. And that's why you don't get the best effort out of them, because it's not a part of their ability or what God has put in them. So we need to find that. And people need to search. And you can't put people on a guilt trip because they do not have your ministry. You just can't jump up and say, oh, y'all need to be down in the jails. That's the real ministry, down there in the jails. Come down in the jails. Everybody that is not comfortable ministering to inmates in jails. Everybody does not have that ability, or visiting sick people or but again, finding your ministry. The Lord in this parable knew the abilities of his servants. He did not give every man the same thing. And this is what we have to understand. Even the amount, even the measure, everybody did not get the same thing. I think sometimes we have a tendency to let that throw us. And most of us, when we start out, we'll probably start in the middle. But notice this, he gave to one man 5 talents. And no doubt this man had proven himself. It wasn't just a matter of the Lord giving him the largest amount. Evidently, by past record, again, understand, according to his ability, evidently by past record, this man had already proven himself. He was faithful. He was dependable. Ask yourself that question when it comes to the Lord. Am I really faithful? Am I really dependable? Can God depend on me? Can God really trust me? Well, evidently this man had proven himself in times past, and the Lord therefore trusted him with a large amount. This man had a testimony. I made note here, he evidently had a testimony of what he had been through. And this is the thing we have to understand. A lot of time what God has previously taken us through has conditioned us for situations that we can handle in the future. There's a reason for your trial. There's a reason for your test. There's a reason for your going through. In many cases, you go through things and you don't understand why it is. And in many cases, it's because the Lord is taking things out of you and putting things in you. You've heard me say this in times past, that there's some things in your life that God can take out, but then there's some things God works out. And sometimes your trial and your test is God working things out of you. There's some things God is not just going to snatch out, because to snatch it out would do more detriment. God knowing the whole man, God knowing the emotions and the mind and the soul and the spirit of the individual, doesn't always snatch things out right away. He works it out over time, because in the midst of working some things out, he's also working some things in. And mind you, this is why we have to understand something. In the midst of God working, and I'm going to help somebody with this, I pray. In the midst of God working things in and out of you, there are seasons of conviction. Now, what do you mean by that, brother preacher? There's seasons of conviction. There's seasons when the Spirit of the Lord will convict you and not allow you to do certain things or participate in certain things or go certain places. Not that it's a sin, not that it's wrong, but for what God is about to do with you. Sometimes things are not always in your best interest. So sometimes the Lord will convict a person and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, why? Well, wait, is it in the Bible? No, it's not necessarily in the Bible, but the Spirit of the Lord is convicting you because he's preparing you for where God is about to take you. Now, here's a mistake that oftentimes happens is sometimes when the Lord puts a conviction on us, we want to put our conviction on everybody else. And in many cases, it doesn't work with them because God is not preparing them like he's preparing you. The Lord is not taking them where he's about to take you. But we've made the mistake, and I've even seen this in churches and even denominations. We put a conviction on the whole denomination and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. And in many cases, it has nothing to do with the Bible. It has nothing to do with the scripture. It's because of one individual's conviction. And he's placed that conviction on the whole church. Well, you know what? That conviction on other folks becomes more of a bondage than it becomes a blessing. To you, it's a blessing, believe it or not. Because as I stated, a lot of times God is preparing you to take you to a certain level. And during the season, because if you walk with God in a period of time, if you notice, some convictions over season and maturity begin to change. You can be convicted of something in your early Christian walk. The Lord will not allow you to do this. The Spirit of the Lord will convict you from doing that. The Lord will say you can't do this, and you wonder why. How come everybody else can do it? It's not in the Bible, because as I stated before, the Lord is preparing you to come to a certain level. And you know what? When you get to that level, a lot of times those things that convicted you, if you notice, they don't bother you anymore. It's because you have matured. But getting back to this first servant, evidently this first servant had been through things that qualified him. He was resourceful. How do you learn resourcefulness? By practice. How do you learn to handle certain situations? By experience. Sometimes a person's experience alone allows them to come to another level. The Lord is wise enough, brothers and sisters. The Lord is wise enough to take all of our experiences in life itself, not necessarily saved, but life itself. Some of y'all didn't get saved till you got in your 20s, in your 30s. Some of y'all didn't get saved until later in life, in your 40s. And you just got this moment, you got tired of hanging out with the same folk, tired of drinking, tired of smoking, tired of getting high, and you just said, I need to get saved. And you come and give your life to the Lord, which is a beautiful thing. But sometimes what you have been through has already qualified you, because God is wise enough to take all of our mistakes and all of our failures and use them to his glory. So how is it that the Lord would trust this man? Some of y'all look and say, man, that guy, he ain't been saved that long. He only been saved a few years. And yet look at how the Lord has blessed him. It's because that his experience has qualified him. You know, some of us that have been in church most of our lives, such as yours truly, you know, there's certain things about the world that we just don't know, have not been exposed to, did not travel in those circles, do not know. And it's very easy for a person to become vulnerable to cons, to swindles, to deception, because we have not become worldly conscious. We have not been street conscious. We have not been conscious of certain things. You know, you can't con a con man. You can't con a man who's played the con game, you know, because he knows the game. Now, a person who's naive is very easy for them to fall victim to. And that's why some of y'all have been letting these folk from Africa send you these pleas, and I've got billions of dollars that I want to share with someone, and you giving out your number and your address and your bank account, and you're getting ripped off. And you say, well, how did that happen? And I've known preachers that happened to. They almost got me. I'll admit that. Now, they didn't, but they had me going there for a while. Why? Because as a man who's been in church most of his life, I did not spot the con. Thank God I spotted it before it was too late. But I've known preachers to get taken. You see? Well, what is my point? Experience is the teacher. And the Lord is wise enough to take your experiences, even in the world, even in your drug days, even in your alcoholic days, even in your womanizing days, even in your days of ill repute. God is wise enough to take all that experience and turn it to his glory. So this was our first man. This was the first servant. He was, again, wise. He was resourceful. He had a testimony. He had proven himself, and therefore he was trusted with more. Let's look at the second man. Now, he didn't get 5 talents. He only got 2. Again, his ability. How did God deal with him? Again, according to their abilities, what was this man's ability? Well, he didn't have the ability of the first man. And that's not to say that he was not saved. That's not to say that he did not love the Lord. That is not to say that he was in bad standings. It's simply the fact that he had to prove himself. You know, most of us brothers and sisters are on trial, believe it or not. And this man, I believe he was on trial. All right, I'm going to see what this young man can do. I'm not going to give him 5. I'm not going to give him the top notch, but I'm going to give him what I think he can handle. If he can handle this, he'll get promoted, which we're going to see a little later. He was on trial. The master saw his potential, but his potential had to be proven. Here's an interesting note about all of the disciples of Jesus, the 12 apostles, including Judas. They all had faults, and you read about some of them more. You read about more than others. You read about Peter's faults. You read about doubting Thomas. You know, you read about John the Beloved. You read, and even on occasion when the disciples murmured among themselves and became disgruntled, and Jesus had to rebuke them and set them straight. You read about this. But here's an interesting thing. In spite of their faults, their shortcomings, Jesus saw the potential in every one of them. And Jesus didn't fire any of them. Now, Judas fired himself. But Jesus did not fire any of his disciples. Sometimes he had to deal with them. Sometimes he had to, rebuke them. Sometimes he had to set them straight. But he didn't fire them. And it's because of the fact that Jesus saw the potential in every one of them. All of them did not have the same personality. And yet Jesus saw the potential. In most of us, Jesus sees the potential, what we could become, the abilities, the talents, as I said before, the talents and the gifts that are in us. But in many cases, those talents and those gifts need to be tapped. And so the Lord will try us. As I said, this second servant was on trial. Let's see what he can do. Before I give him the big money, let's see what he can do with this small amount. Let's see what he can do. So he was on trial. He was ambitious, I'm sure. He wanted to prove himself. He was anxious. And sometimes these type of emotions, brothers and sisters, in us have to be curbed. I remember, again, starting out as a young preacher, and most of y'all know my story. I started when I was a 16-year-old boy, and I was zealous. I was anxious. I wanted to get out there and prove myself. And I was wise enough. I had a pastor who was wise enough to kind of keep me under control. I know that they're sometimes family. They can sometimes jump in and push a young preacher further than he's supposed to go. Sometimes your parents, your grandparents, and they know the potential as well. They want to see you do great things. So they get out there and say, come on, boy, get out there, do this, do that. And when the pastor is trying to keep you more or less on a pace, sometimes they'll jump and even try to override the pastor and get upset and take you out of the church and take you somewhere else where you can be, as they say, you can be free. Well, I was wise enough to have a pastor who saw the potential in me, saw the zeal in me, and sometimes would keep me under control so that I would not run out ahead of the game. I've seen plenty of young preachers make shipwreck, crash. In fact, there's a situation here in the city of Chicago. I won't mention no names. I won't mention no particular church. But I understand now that he's still young, and yet he's resigning from a church that he was put into, in my estimation, not that very long ago. He's gone through some things. He's gone through some setbacks. He's gone through some trials. He's made some mistakes, some big mistakes. And now he's saying that the Lord is telling him it's time to retire, resign, or whatever. My God, the man is younger than me, But again, sometimes we are not properly placed on the right track. The Lord, looking at this second servant, saw the potential, saw what he could do. And he said, I'm going to try him. Most of us are at that level. Most of us still in the trying stages. Most of us, the Lord has not promoted us yet because we're still in the trial. And I want to say to some of you to be encouraged. Don't be encouraged because you have not accomplished the goals of other ministries. I sometimes, and I've done this myself, compared myself to other ministries, compared myself to other ministers that have been mentors of mine, that have done great things. And I've become excited about what they're doing and hoping that one day the Lord will take me there. Well, maybe he will, maybe he won't. In fact, some folk, you're not going to get to their level anyway. Because you just don't have that in you, But my point is this, that regardless to where God takes us, can you look over your life and say that I've done something with what the Lord has given me? There are some places God will take you that he hasn't even taken your mentors. There are some places the Lord will deal with you that he hasn't done with those that you admire. Because to every man and woman, according to their ability. There's some people that are on top of the world, and yet they do not have the ability that you have. It's just like when you look at television shows. There's more people behind the camera. There's more people behind the scenes that make a television show as opposed to those that are in front of the camera. Now, you got the actors, of course. The actors play the roles out. The actors study the script. The actors go through the various portions of the TV show or movie itself or whatever they're doing. But there are a lot more people behind the camera that you never see. Matter of fact, if you don't stay and watch the credits, you don't even know who they are. You got the cameraman. You got the producer. You got the director. You've got the logistics. You've got the graphics. You've got, there's even a portion I was looking at called the best boy. I always want to know what the best boy was. The best boy is, he does whatever they ask him to do. All those people, you look at the credits roll after a movie, there are more people beside the actors than there are the actors themselves. And sometimes it's those people behind the camera that make all the actors look good. Saying that to say this, there's some people, brothers and sisters, you yourself may never get in the feature role. You may never be in front of the camera, as it were, but your role is important, and God has put that ability in you. So that was the second man. But let's look at the third man. The Bible said this third servant. In fact, let me read it here because I kind of cut off here. But let me read what took place. Verse 16, then he that received 5 talents went and traded with the same and made them 5 other talents. This was the man that had the most. And likewise, he that received 2, he also gained other 2. Now, he didn't even get what the first man got. The other man got 5, but he took his 2 and doubled what he had. But he that received 1 went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. After the long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoned with them. And so he that received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou hast delivered unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 more talents. And his Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, and I'll make thee ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. In other words, you've been promoted because of your action. Verse 23, he also that received 2 came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other besides them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. Again, this man was promoted. Even though he didn't have what the first man had, he took what he had and made it work. He was promoted. Verse 22, he that also, verse down to verse 24. Then he which received 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew that thou art a hard man, weeping where thou hast not sown, gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth, and lo, here it that is thine. And the Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, where I sowed not, I gathered, where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then in my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it to him which had 10 talents. So the man that had more, had 10, even got more. For everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he has. And he cast the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The unprofitable servant, the last one. Now let's look at his attitude. Number 1, he was full of excuses. You know, I have a sermon that I preached. Excuses leave you in the same place. And that's basically what an excuse does. Basically, brothers and sisters, an excuse is a justification for failure. It's an explanation for failure and a justification. I feel justified because I could not do it. Well, regardless of the excuse, good, bad, or indifference, it's a justification for failure. This man failed. And no wonder he only got 1 talent. He couldn't be trusted. And he proved himself untrustworthy. This man had no ambition, no motive, no drive, just satisfied sitting there. How many of y'all, that's you? You're in the church. All you do is come to church, sit there, hear the sermon, go back home. No ambition, no drive, no motive, no accomplishment, nothing. What do? I go to church. What do you do in the church? Nothing. What do you do when you leave church? Nothing. Do you pray? No. Do you seek the Lord? No. Do you read the Bible? I read the Bible in Bible study. You know, everything that you do is centered around what you have time for, what you feel like doing, what's convenient. No motive, no ambition, no drive. No wonder you cannot be trusted. No wonder this man only got 1 in the first place. And he didn't even do right with that 1. He compared himself to others. I like to use this illustration because I see that in a lot of people. Sometimes we compare ourselves to others. And again, it's not necessarily a mentorship. Sometimes we compare ourselves in self-pity. I could never do what that person does. I could never, or even jealousy, who they think they are. Look at them. They're always up doing this. They need to go somewhere and sit down. That's generally the mindset of a loser. They want you to sit down because they're sitting down. They want you to stop because they're not doing anything. And so their motive, they can see no higher than their mindset. Their mindset is go somewhere and sit down. That's their mindset. And so that's why they want you to go somewhere and sit down, because that's what they've done. They went somewhere and sat down. That's basically what it boils down to. And you can't join yourself with those type of people because they have no ambition. They have no motive. They see no further than their own emotions, the way they feel about it. They're full of opinions. And my opinion is mine, and I don't see why. And that's why that's why they are the way they are, and that's why they go no further than the way they go. And that was this man, whom the Lord said unprofitable, wicked, slothful. The man was self-loathing, self-pity, afraid, feeling sorry for himself. There's a reason why, and I'll bring this to a close. There's a reason why all of these servants got what they got. And it proved by the Lord's own discernment why they did what they did. Now stop and look at yourself, brothers and sisters. I close this out here. Stop and look at yourself. Where are you among these servants? Where are you among these servants? Are you ambitious? Are you resourceful? Are you experienced? Can the Lord trust you? Are you on trial? Do you have something to prove? Do you want to prove to your Lord that you can be trusted? Or are you the last person who does nothing, no ambition, no motive, just goes to church and says, well, Lord, I went to church. Well, Lord, I went to church. What have you done with the talent I gave? Well, they wouldn't let me sing, but I went to church. Well, wait a minute. You mean to tell me you had a ability, a talent to sing? Did you ask to join the choir? Well, I knew they were going to say no. You prejudged it. What else have you done? Have you sought ministry? Have you sought to tap what I put in you? Because I put something in you. What have you done with it? Well, I don't know. Have you prayed? Well, no, I just ain't had the time to pray. You know, I'm always praying in my mind. That's not prayer. That's not prayer. Spending time in the presence of the Lord. Spending time meditating on the Lord. That's what God wants. Because as I've said in broadcasts past, a lot of time being in the presence of God reveals things to you. Sometimes the Lord don't have to say nothing. You can know things. You don't know how you know it. You don't know when it got there. But just being in the presence of God has revealed it. So how many of us are like this last man? And you know what the fate of this last man was? Not only did the man take his talent from him, so he started out with hardly nothing, and then he had nothing. Then the Bible said the Lord called him wicked, slothful, and unprofitable, and cast him out. Now I want you to look at yourself, and our time is up. I'm going over time here. But I want every one of you that are viewing this to look at yourself and find out where are you when it comes to these three servants. All right, God bless. Our time is up. Oh, my God, I really get into it, and then I look up and the time is up. Get our book, The Challenges of the 21st Century Church. It's available on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble. All you simply have to do is go to their website, go to the book section, not the music section, not the toy section, not the game section, the book section, and type in my name, Scott A. Bradley, or the title of the book, The Challenges of the 21st Century Church. Do that, and the book will come up and be available to you for purchase. I want you to get it. Oh, there's some things that I'm looking at even in headlines now. I'm looking at topics now. I'm looking at television shows now. You need this book. You need this book. You need the challenges of the 21st century church. If you mean anything for God and mean to make a stand for God, you need to know what you know. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. All right, God bless you. Our time is up. We will be coming to you again next Thursday. Thank all of you that have been chiming in here. Let's see, we got quite a few folks that have chimed in here today. Oh, I can't read all of your names. God bless you, Pastor Williams. God bless you, Brother John Cox. Bless you, sir. Keith Morris. God bless you. Let's see, Sister Charlotte. Doris Bell. I think that is James Watts. Bless you, Steve Hunley. There are a few others of you there. I can't get all of you, but you're there. And we appreciate you tuning us in. Until next Thursday morning, this is Scott Bradley saying, God bless you. I love you. Thank God for you. Pray for us. And we look to talk to you again real soon. Jesus never fails. Jesus